In 1920, Babe Ruth hit 54 home runs. The entire St. Louis Browns hit 37. One man out-homered an entire franchise. Baseball had never seen anything like it. Ruth did not just break records that year, he broke baseball. He ended the dead ball era. He killed Ty Cobb's game of bunts and stolen bases and singles and replaced it with something louder, something more violent, something that made 50,000 fans stand on their feet and scream. He replaced strategy with power. He replaced patience with the swing, and he warned the world, the home run and power is the future. The man who can hit the ball over the fence will always be more valuable than the man who can hit it through the hole. The game will never go back. He was right, and 30 years later, the future he predicted walked out of a zinc mine in Commerce, Oklahoma, and reported to the New York Yankees. His name was Mickey Mantle. He was 19 years old. He could hit the ball further than anyone from either side of the plate. He could run from home to first in 3.1 seconds, the fastest time ever recorded for a man his size. He had Ruth's power and Ty Cobb's speed, and something neither of them had, the ability to switch hit with devastating force from both sides of the plate. Mickey Mantle was what Babe Ruth warned us about. This is the story of the prophecy and the man who fulfilled it. To understand Mickey Mantle, you have to start with his father. Elvin Mantle, known as Mutt, was a zinc miner in northeastern Oklahoma. He worked underground in the lead and zinc mines near Commerce, breathing dust that would eventually kill him. He was also a semi-professional baseball player, a fireballing pitcher who played on weekends for local teams and dreamed of a career in the major leagues that never materialized. Mutt could not escape the mines. But his son would. Mutt Mantle was so obsessed with baseball that he named his first child after Mickey Cochrane, the Hall of Fame catcher of the Philadelphia Athletics. Mickey Cochrane was Mutt's favorite player. The irony is that Cochrane played during the Babe Ruth era, on the team that dethroned Ruth's Yankees in 1929. Mickey Mantle's name was a bridge between eras, connecting him to Ruth's world before he was old enough to hold a bat. Mutt began teaching Mickey to hit almost before the boy could walk. He taught him to switch hit using tennis balls in the backyard. Mickey would bat right-handed against his left-handed father, then turn around and bat left-handed against his right-handed grandfather, Charlie Mantle. Day after day, year after year, the boy stood in the dirt and swung. By the time he was 12, Mickey Mantle was switch hitting with a fluency that grown men could not match. He was a gifted athlete in every sport. He played quarterback on his high school football team in Commerce. He played basketball. He was the best baseball player anyone in northeastern Oklahoma had ever seen. Then, during a football practice in 1946, a teammate kicked him in the shin. The injury seemed minor. It was not. Mickey developed osteomyelitis, a chronic bone infection that attacked the tissue inside his leg. The disease was so severe that doctors recommended amputation. Mutt Mantle refused. He insisted they try everything else first. Penicillin, still a relatively new drug, eventually arrested the infection, but osteomyelitis never fully goes away. It weakened the bones in Mickey's legs and made him vulnerable to injuries that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The disease that almost took his leg at 15 would shadow him for the next 47 years. A Yankees scout named Tom Greenwade spotted Mantle playing semi-professional baseball for the Baxter Springs Whiz Kids in 1949. Greenwade watched the 17-year-old hit balls that disappeared into the Oklahoma twilight and knew immediately that he was looking at something extraordinary. He signed Mantle to a minor league contract. In 1950, Mantle hit .383 at Joplin in the Class C Western Association. In the off-season, he went back to Commerce and worked in the mines with his father, hauling ore underground, breathing the same dust that was slowly killing Mutt. Then came spring training in 1951. Mantle hit .402 with 9 home runs. He ran the bases with a speed that left veteran players staring. Casey Stengel, the Yankees manager, told Sport magazine, "This kid ain't logical. He's a big league hitter and base runner right now. I know he's not a big league outfielder yet, and he should have a year of AAA under his belt. That's the only logical thing. But this kid ain't logical. Stengel told the press that Mantle would be better than Ruth or DiMaggio. The comparison was unfair. It was also inevitable. Ruth had created the power game. DiMaggio had perfected it with grace. Mantle, Stengel believed, would take it somewhere nobody had ever imagined. The pressure was suffocating. Mickey was 19 years old, a kid from a mining town who had never been to a city bigger than Joplin, and suddenly the New York media was comparing him to the two most famous athletes in American history. He struck out too much in his first months with the Yankees. Stengel sent him back to the minor leagues. Mantle called his father, devastated, and told him he wanted to quit. Mutt drove from Commerce to Kansas City. He walked into Mickey's hotel room and found his son sitting on the bed with his head in his hands. Instead of comforting him, Mutt started packing Mickey's suitcase. "I thought I raised a man," Mutt said. "You ain't a man, you're a coward. Come on back to Oklahoma and work the mines with me." Mickey Mantle never talked about quitting again. He went back to the minor leagues, hit .361 in 40 games, and was called back up to the Yankees for good. He finished the 1951 regular season hitting .267 with 13 home runs in 96 games. The numbers were decent, but not historic. The comparisons to Ruth and DiMaggio seemed premature. The kid was talented, everyone agreed, but he struck out too much, and he was still learning to play the outfield. What nobody could see from the box scores was the raw ability that made Stengel's eyes go wide every time Mantle stepped into the batting cage. His bat speed was unlike anything the coaching staff had ever witnessed. He could hit a ball 450 feet from the left side of the plate and then turn around and hit one 450 feet from the right side. He was 6 feet tall and 195 pounds, built like a fullback, with forearms that looked like they had been sculpted in the Oklahoma mines. His swing from the left side was considered one of the most violent and beautiful in baseball history, a coiled explosion that generated power from his legs, his hips, his torso, and his wrists in one seamless motion. And he could run. Before the knee injuries, Mickey Mantle was the fastest man in baseball. He was timed at 3.1 seconds from home to first base, a speed that seemed impossible for a man his size. He ran the bases with an aggression that reminded old-timers of Ty Cobb. Except Mantle was faster than Cobb had ever been. He was a power hitter who could bunt for a hit, a home run hitter who could steal bases, a slugger who could beat out a grounder to short. He was everything Babe Ruth was, plus everything Ruth was not. That was the prophecy. The 1951 World Series against the New York Giants changed Mickey Mantle's life in ways he could not have anticipated. In Game 2, Mantle was playing right field next to Joe DiMaggio in center. Willie Mays hit a fly ball to right center. Mantle sprinted toward it. DiMaggio called him off. Mantle pulled up to avoid a collision, and his right cleat caught on a rubber drainage cover buried in the outfield grass. His knee buckled. He collapsed to the ground and had to be carried off the field on a stretcher. The torn anterior cruciate ligament in his right knee was never properly repaired. Surgery in 1951 was not what it is today. There was no arthroscopic technology. There was no sports medicine as a discipline. Doctors wrapped the knee, told him to rest, and sent him back out. In 1953, a full 2 years after the initial injury, he finally had surgery on the left knee after tearing cartilage. By then, both knees were compromised. The damage was permanent and cumulative. Mickey Mantle would play his entire career, 17 more seasons, on 2 destroyed knees. He wrapped both legs in bandages from his thighs to his ankles before every single game. Teammates who arrived early to the clubhouse would watch him go through the ritual in silence, layer after layer of white tape around joints that should have ended his career years earlier. The wrapping took nearly 30 minutes. When he was done, he would stand up, test the knees gingerly, and walk to the dugout like a man twice his age. Then the game would start, and he would hit a ball 500 feet. The fastest man in baseball gradually lost his speed, and with it, the dimension of his game that made him unlike anyone who had ever played. By his late 20s, he could no longer beat out infield hits. By his early 30s, he could barely run to first without wincing. The player who had been timed at 3.1 seconds was now limping down the line, his face twisted in pain, his body betraying the talent his mind still possessed. But the injury was not the worst thing that happened at that World Series. Mutt Mantle had traveled from Commerce to New York to watch his son play in the Fall Classic. It was the proudest moment of Mutt's life. His boy, the one he had taught to switch hit in the backyard with tennis balls, was playing in the World Series for the New York Yankees. At the hospital, while visiting Mickey after the knee surgery, Mutt collapsed in the hallway. He was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, the same cancer that had killed his father. Mickey's grandfather had died of Hodgkin's at 34. Mutt would die of it on May 6, 1952, at 39. Mickey's uncles would die of the same disease in their 30s and 40s. Mickey Mantle looked at his family tree and saw a death sentence. "No man in my family has ever lived past 40, he told friends. His grandfather dead at 34, his father dead at 39, his uncles dying in their 30s and 40s. The same disease, generation after generation, claiming the Mantle men before they reached middle age." Mickey believed with absolute certainty that he would be next. He believed it the way other people believe the sun will rise. It was not a fear, it was a fact, and that fact destroyed him. If you think you are going to die at 40, you do not take care of yourself. You drink because the consequences do not matter. You stay out until 4 in the morning because there is no point in saving energy for a future that does not exist. You play through injuries that should sideline you for months because the alternative, sitting out to preserve your health, assumes you have a health worth preserving. You live like a man who has already been told the date of his own funeral. Mickey Mantle became one of the most legendary drinkers in the history of professional sports. His running mates were Billy Martin and Whitey Ford, and together the three of them tore through New York's nightlife with a recklessness that should have ended all of their careers. They closed bars. They missed curfews. They showed up to the ballpark with hangovers that would have hospitalized ordinary men. Mantle showed up to games unable to see straight and still hit home runs that traveled 400 feet. Stengel watched it happen and shook his head. "If he could just stay healthy," Stengel said. "If he could just take care of himself. He would be the best player I ever managed." Mantle did not take care of himself. He played through pain that would have put other men on the disabled list for months. He drank through grief that he never properly processed. He ran from the fear of death by running straight toward it. And yet, on the field, even broken and hungover and running on 2 destroyed knees, Mickey Mantle was the most devastating force in baseball. In 1956, Mantle had the greatest season of his career. He hit .353 with 52 home runs and 130 runs batted in, winning the American League Triple Crown. He was the only switch hitter in history to win the Triple Crown. His slugging percentage of .705 is the highest ever recorded by a switch hitter. He won the MVP award unanimously. He hit a home run at Griffith Stadium in Washington that was measured at 565 feet. It is one of the longest home runs ever recorded. The blast was so extraordinary that it inspired the term tape measure home run, which is still used today to describe any ball hit an exceptional distance. He nearly hit a ball completely out of Yankee Stadium on 5 separate occasions. No player in history has ever hit a fair ball out of Yankee Stadium. Mantle came closer than anyone. The balls crashed off the facade of the upper deck in right field, missing the roof by inches. If any of those shots had cleared the stadium, it would have been the most famous home run in baseball history. He won the MVP again in 1957, hitting .365 with 34 home runs. He won a third MVP in 1962. He was selected to 20 All-Star teams, 16 of them consecutively. He played in 12 World Series and holds the all-time record for World Series home runs with 18, a record that still stands. He also holds the records for most World Series runs, runs batted in, walks, extra base hits, and total bases. 7 World Series championships, 12 Fall Classics in 18 seasons, 18 home runs in October, more than any player in history. He also holds the all-time World Series records for runs scored with 42, runs batted in with 40, walks with 43, extra base hits with 26, and total bases with 123. Every single one of those records still stands. No player in the 70 years since has come close. The Yankees dynasty that Mantle powered was breathtaking. From 1951 through 1964, the Yankees won 12 pennants and 7 World Series in 14 seasons. Mantle was the centerpiece of all of it. He was the bridge from DiMaggio's era to the expansion era, the one constant in a lineup that changed around him. Teammates came and went, managers came and went. Mantle stayed and the Yankees kept winning. He was everything Babe Ruth's revolution had promised. Ruth changed the game from singles to home runs. Mantle took Ruth's game and added the one thing Ruth never had: speed. Ruth was slow and overweight. Mantle was fast enough to beat out infield hits and steal bases. Ruth could hit from one side of the plate. Mantle could hit from both. Ruth was a great player who changed the sport. Mantle was what the sport looked like after Ruth's changes had been fully absorbed by a generation of players who grew up swinging for the fences. Ruth held the career strikeout record at 1,330. Mantle broke it. That was part of the prophecy too. Ruth warned the world that power came with a price. Home runs meant strikeouts. Tape measure blasts meant swings and misses. Mantle struck out 1,710 times in his career. More than any player before him, he was the first man to prove that the trade-off Ruth had introduced, power for contact, was not just acceptable. It was the cost of doing business. In 1961, Mantle and his teammate Roger Maris both chased Babe Ruth's single-season record of 60 home runs. It was the most famous home run race in baseball history, a summer-long drama that consumed the entire country and turned two teammates into rivals whether they wanted to be or not. Through June, both men were ahead of Ruth's pace. By August, Mantle had 43 home runs and Maris had 42. The newspapers ran daily updates. Fans argued in barbershops and living rooms. The question on everyone's lips was the same: who will break the Babe's record? Mantle was the sentimental favorite. He was the beloved Yankee, the commerce comet, the switch hitter with the movie star charisma. Maris was the quiet outsider from Fargo, North Dakota, who had been traded to the Yankees just 2 years earlier. The media wanted Mantle to break the record. The fans wanted Mantle to break the record. Even Commissioner Ford Frick, who had been Babe Ruth's ghostwriter and close personal friend, seemed to want Mantle to break the record. Frick ruled that if anyone broke Ruth's mark of 60, it would only count as the official record if it was accomplished in 154 games, the same number Ruth had played. If the record fell in games 155 through 162, it would carry an asterisk. The ruling was widely seen as an attempt to protect Ruth's legacy, but its practical effect was to punish Maris for something beyond his control. Then Mantle's body betrayed him again. An abscessing infection on his hip, caused by a contaminated injection from a New York physician named Max Jacobson, sidelined him in September. Jacobson, who was known as Dr. Feelgood and counted President John F. Kennedy among his patients, administered shots that were later revealed to contain amphetamines, methamphetamines, and other dangerous substances. He was stripped of his medical license in 1975. But the damage to Mantle was already done. Maris went on to hit 61 home runs, breaking Ruth's record on the final day of the season with a home run off Tracy Stallard of the Boston Red Sox. Mantle finished with 54, a number that would have been the single-season record in any other year in any other context. Mantle was the sentimental favorite of both the fans and the media. They wanted him to break the record, not Maris. Maris received hate mail. His hair fell out from the stress. The cruelty directed at him for having the audacity to break Babe Ruth's record remains one of the ugliest chapters in baseball history. Mantle played 3 more full seasons after 1961, winning his 3rd Emmy MVP. In 1962, with a .321 average, 30 home runs, and 89 runs batted in. The Yankees won the pennant that year and beat the San Francisco Giants in a 7-game World Series. But Mantle's body was deteriorating season by season. His knees were worse than ever. His shoulders ached. His hands were swollen. By 1965, at just 33 years old, he was a shadow of the player he had been. He told reporters, "It isn't any fun when things are like this. I'm only 33, but I feel like 40. The number 40 hung in the air. That was the age no Mantle man was supposed to reach. At 33, Mickey already felt like he was running out of time. He moved to first base in 1967 because his knees could no longer handle the outfield. He hit .245 that year. In 1968, his final season, he hit .237 with 18 home runs. His lifetime batting average, which had been above 300 for most of his career, dipped below the line in those final at-bats. The number haunted him. .298, 2 points below the threshold. He once told a friend that failing to finish above 300 bothered him more than anything else about his career. He retired on March 1st, 1969. He delivered a farewell speech at Yankee Stadium on Mickey Mantle Day, June 8th, in front of his wife Merlin, his mother Lovell, and 60,000 fans who gave him a standing ovation that lasted nearly 10 minutes. He was 37 years old. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1974. On his first ballot, he left behind 536 home runs, 7 World Series rings, and the biggest what-if in baseball history. What if Mickey Mantle had been healthy? What if the drainage cover in the 1951 World Series had not been there? What if his knees had held up? What if the osteomyelitis had never happened? What if he had not believed he was going to die at 40 and destroyed his body with alcohol? These are not idle questions. They are the central questions of Mickey Mantle's legacy. Baseball historians and statisticians have estimated that a healthy Mickey Mantle, playing a full career without chronic injuries and without the self-destructive behavior driven by his family's history of early death, would have hit well over 700 home runs and batted above 300 for his career. He would have stolen more bases than any power hitter in history. He would have played 20 seasons instead of 18 and produced numbers that would have made the debate about the greatest player of all time a very short conversation. Bill James, the father of modern baseball statistics, once wrote that Mantle was the player whose career was most diminished by injuries. Many baseball historians consider him the most talented player who ever lived. Not the most accomplished, not the most productive, but the most talented. The gap between what Mantle was and what Mantle could have been is the widest in the history of the sport. Instead, he was the most talented player who ever lived and the most heartbreaking. After retirement, Mantle's life spiraled downward. He worked as a broadcaster for a short time. He sold insurance. He owned a restaurant on 59th Street in Manhattan called Mickey Mantle's. He made appearances at autograph shows and celebrity golf tournaments, signing baseballs and shaking hands and smiling for cameras while the alcohol consumed him from the inside. His marriage to his wife Merlin suffered badly. His relationships with his 4 sons, Mickey Jr., David, Billy, and Danny, were strained by his absence and his drinking. He was not a bad father. He was an absent one. The same recklessness that had made him a legend on the field made him a ghost at home. Billy, the son named after his best friend, Billy Martin, would later struggle with addiction himself. The fun-loving Mickey Mantle of the 50s and 60s, the commerce comet who ran the bases like a comet and hit the ball like a god, became a sad, aging man who could not stop pouring whiskey into a body that had already given him everything and received nothing in return. In 1994, at the urging of his family and close friends, Mantle checked into the Betty Ford Clinic in Rancho Mirage, California, for alcohol addiction treatment. He was 62 years old. He had been drinking heavily for over 40 years. When he emerged, he was sober for the first time since his 20s. He was also, finally, honest about what he had done to himself. "God gave me the ability to play baseball," he told reporters at a press conference that was carried on national television. "God gave me everything, but I wasted it." The words hung in the air like a confession. It was the most devastating sentence any athlete has ever spoken. Not because it was self-pitying, because it was not. It was factual. Everyone who had ever watched Mickey Mantle play knew it was true. He had been given a body that could do things no other body in history could do, and he had poisoned it with alcohol and neglect because he believed he was going to die young anyway. For a few months, it seemed like Mantle might have a second act. He was sober, he was honest, he was speaking publicly about addiction and encouraging others to seek help. He was, for the first time in his life, using his fame for something beyond entertainment. Then the diagnosis came. In January of 1995, Mantle was diagnosed with liver cancer. Tests also revealed hepatitis C, which he had contracted from a contaminated blood transfusion years earlier. The cancer was advanced. The liver was failing. On June 8, 1995, Mantle received a liver transplant at Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas. The surgery was successful, but controversy followed immediately. Some accused him of jumping the transplant waiting list because of his celebrity. Baylor denied the allegations, stating that Mantle's case had been evaluated according to standard medical criteria. But the accusation stung. Mantle held a press conference from his hospital bed, gaunt and pale, wearing a baseball cap to cover his bald head. He looked directly into the camera and delivered a message that was equal parts gratitude, regret, and warning. "Don't be like me," he said. His voice cracked. "I was given so much, and I blew it. If you are looking for a role model, do not look at me." The cancer had already spread to his lungs. The transplant could not save him. The body that had once been the most powerful instrument in baseball was giving out, organ by organ, the way his knees had given out decades earlier. On August 13, 1995, Mickey Charles Mantle died at Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. He was 63 years old. His last words to his son David were simple: "I'm ready." The man who had believed he would die at 40 had outlived his father by 24 years. The prophecy of early death that had driven his self-destruction, that had made him drink and neglect his body and live every day like it was his last, turned out to be wrong. He had plenty of time, he just did not know it. And by the time he found out, it was too late. Bob Costas delivered a tribute on national television that called Mantle the most compelling baseball hero of our time. Bobby Mercer, a former teammate, gave the eulogy at the funeral. Thousands of mourners gathered outside the church in Dallas. The country mourned him the way it had mourned Ruth 47 years earlier, with the understanding that something irreplaceable had been lost, and that the loss was made worse by the knowledge that it did not have to happen this way. Babe Ruth warned us about Mickey Mantle, not by name, not by prediction, but by action. He warned us that the power game would produce players of extraordinary talent and extraordinary contradiction. Players who could hit the ball 565 feet and strike out 1,710 times. Players who could win triple crowns on 2 destroyed knees. Players who could be the greatest of their generation and the greatest waste of their generation at the same time. Ruth changed baseball from a game of contact to a game of power. He swung harder than anyone had ever swung before. He hit the ball farther than anyone had ever hit it before. He struck out more than anyone had ever struck out before. And he lived harder, drank more, ate more, and burned brighter than any athlete before or since. Mantle was the ultimate product of that change. He had more natural ability than any player who ever lived. He could hit the ball further from both sides of the plate than anyone in history. He could run faster than anyone his size had any right to run. He played on 2 destroyed knees for 17 years and still hit 536 home runs, won 3 MVP awards, and earned 7 World Series championships. But Ruth also warned us about the price. He held the strikeout record. Mantle broke it. Ruth lived recklessly and died of cancer at 53. Mantle lived recklessly and died of cancer at 63. Ruth came from a reform school where a monk taught him to play. Mantle came from a zinc mine where a father taught him to switch hit. Both were given bodies that defied explanation. Both were given talent that defied measurement. Both gave the game everything they had. And both left behind the same haunting, unanswerable question: what if they had taken better care of what they were given? Ruth's answer does not matter anymore. He changed the sport. His legacy is secure. He built the stadium and the franchise and the template for every dynasty that followed. History remembers what he accomplished, not what he wasted. Mantle's answer is different. It haunts baseball to this day. Because unlike Ruth, whose numbers were complete and whose records stood for decades, Mantle's numbers are incomplete. They are a rough draft of what should have been a finished masterpiece. 536 home runs from a man who should have hit 700. A .298 average from a man who should have hit .320. 18 seasons from a man whose body was failing him by his 12th. 7 World Series titles from a man who played in 12 and could have played in more. Mickey Mantle is what Babe Ruth warned us about. The power, the glory, the tape measure home runs that crashed off the upper deck and into legend. And the price, the strikeouts, the injuries, the bottle, the belief that tomorrow would never come. God gave me everything, Mantle said, but I wasted it. Babe Ruth created the game that produced Mickey Mantle, and Mickey Mantle spent his whole life proving that the game Ruth created was both the most beautiful and the most destructive force in sports. The prophecy was fulfilled, the price was paid in full, and baseball has never stopped wondering what might have been. Like and subscribe for more baseball documentaries. Until next time.